Do the Ukrainians have 3 brigades on the left bank of the Dnipro? At least that's what one media outlet is currently saying in reference to anonymous official sources. We'll talk about this in this situation report, as well as about the other developments along the front line in Ukraine, where Russia gains additional ground around Avdiivka and Ukraine gains some spectacular success, even though the real significance of this is doubtful, because they managed to pierce the demarcation line where the front line was stable until February of 2022. For the second time, they entered territory that was held by Russia since 2016. This and more in this situation report. This video is once more sponsored by CyberGhost VPN. You already know that one from past videos, a permanent supporter of this channel, but more about this later in this video. First, we start with the overall informations. We have the spokesperson of the Ukrainian Southern Front, and she said that the Russians have 800 caliber and Onyx missiles on the Crimean Peninsula. If we take her literally, that would mean that they would have more. That would mean that 800 of just those 2 types are on the Crimean Peninsula, but they would obviously have additional missiles at other parts of their held territory, which would lead to an even bigger barrage that Ukraine can expect during the expected winter air offensive that will come shortly. Ukraine is striking back, though. We have news that close to the aircraft factory at Smolensk, there were several explosions. The Russians are saying their air defense shot down several Ukrainian drones. So we have the confirmation that it was Ukrainian activity. There are no reports whether or not those drones hit actually something. No claim of this to be found as of now. Along the northern frontier, where the international border between the two countries is, the Russians are increasing their protection for high-value targets. They're currently in the process of identifying strategic targets, infrastructure, etc., and there are claims that they set up militias to help protect them. I guess it would be in connection with their planned air offensive that they will expect Ukraine trying to strike back, and one of the means would obviously be to send saboteurs over the international border to blow up stuff on the Russian side, and they want to prevent that with having troops on the ground guarding those sites. At least that's what we know from the Russians and my interpretation of this. North of the Seversky Donetsk, here at the Luhansk front and Kharkiv, I have no change in territory, so lots of fighting, some Ukrainian counterattacks, a lot of Russian attacks, but nothing has changed, so we skip that part mostly. Bakhmut, same here, the area south of Seversky Donetsk. We also have fighting attacks by both sides. I cannot confirm any change except for this here, where we have a Russian military blogger writing that southeast of Andriivka, the Ukrainians managed to gain additional ground. So probably in this area here, they managed to advance somewhat according to the Russian source. Now, usually we take Russian military bloggers if they admit defeat as a fact. So it's possible that the Ukrainians advanced there, but that's more or less it. None of the bigger ones had admitted that defeat, and I haven't seen visual evidence. Where I do have seen visual evidence, though, is almost spectacular. That's here south of Shumy in the direction of Horlivka. The Ukrainians managed to attack in this area, managed to advance by roughly a kilometer, I think even a little bit over a kilometer, roughly from here towards here. They managed to capture that territory, which was until recently, we have it here on the map too, I think, yeah. That was recently in Russian control. They managed to advance up to here. So while they have withdrawn, they have secured additional area. Now, we can debate whether that has some operational value. I highly doubt it. I don't see where they want to achieve with this, what they want to achieve with this. At least I don't see a big plan there yet. But why it is special is the reason why it's special is that this territory was held by the Russians since 2016. So since the Russian-sponsored uprising, the fighting with Russian volunteers in eastern Ukraine, the front line stabilized around this here, and this is now the first time where the Ukrainians have pierced it here. It's only the second time overall in this war that I have observed that they did it. Another time was here close to Krasnohorivka. I think along that road they managed to advance somewhat forward, but by now they have been pushed back, so this gain was lost again. Further south, we were just here. Further south, we're going to the Avdiivka area. Here we have a Ukrainian military blogger saying that the Russian admitting defeat, that the Russians advanced in more or less in this area here, northwest of Krasnohorivka, along the railroad line that you see here, and they also gained additional ground in this area, again along the railroad line, and again we have Ukrainian military bloggers admitting defeat. More interesting is the other thing where Russian soldiers were spotted. We have a geolocalization here of Russian soldiers right west of the waste heap. This should be more or less here, which shows that the Russians were starting to attempt to enter the coke plant. Now this industrial plant is one of the strong points of the Ukrainian defense, and they actually seem to have tried to get close to it or to enter it. In this video, they are struck by an FPV drone, so it wasn't successful in this regard. I do not have any confirmation that they have entered the plant yet, but we should expect the fighting for it to start fairly soon. Further south, we have reports of additional fighting as usual. Marinka, no change there. And at Novomikhailivka, the Ukrainians have attacked, but I have not observed any change in territory there either. But now to the sponsor of today's video. CyberGhost VPN is one of the world's leading VPN providers with more than 38 million users. More than 18,000 users have rated CyberGhost on Trustpilot with an excellent average of 4.3 points. The VPN hides the IP address, encrypts the data, and routes all traffic on the internet through a secure VPN tunnel. The VPN allows access to over 35 popular streaming providers such as Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and BBC iPlayer, giving you worldwide access without geo-blocking. The software, which is available for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, smart TVs, gaming consoles, and Linux, is not only user-friendly and can be operated without technical knowledge, but over 9,000 servers in 91 countries can be used both professionally and privately, while one's own online behavior remains hidden. With one subscription, up to 7 different end devices can be registered at the same time. The access data may be explicitly shared with one's own family. By clicking on the link below, you will get 84% discount on a 24 months contract, which means only $2.03 per month. After that, you get another 4 months for free. CyberGhost offers a 45-day money-back guarantee, while the support team is also available 24/7. Further south, there was fighting at Vuhledar as well. I have no observation of change in territory here. And at the Oblast border, the usual thing, fighting, but there we actually do have some change. West of Novodonetsk, we have the Ukrainians have been spotted here. I have a geolocalization here at this point. In the last situation report, the Russians have been spotted roughly here. So we see that this tree line is actively contested. Both sides are fighting about it. I cannot confirm that the Ukrainians have permanently managed to grab that area from themselves and entrench themselves, but we do see that they have advanced towards the southern area here. Further west at Orikhiv, we have additional fighting as well, and reports of Ukrainian successes, small successes in the direction of Kopani. They managed to gain some ground here in the north. The Russians counterattacked in the direction of Robotine and from Novoprokopivka. They claim they gained 700 meters in some forested area. I have no confirmation of this, no visual, no Ukrainian admitting defeat. So it's probably not true, but we'll keep an eye on it. If it turns out to be true, then we'll talk about it in the next situation report. And if you don't want to miss it, why don't you I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Let's go further west to the Dnipro. Here we have the reports about fighting at Krinky, which is continuing. The Russians have been spotted roughly in here, so they have advanced somewhat into this area here. I think it was this here, where they are now. If you see that forested area and where the street starts turning, it's roughly in the middle of it, so that must be more or less, it's more or less here. But at the same time, the Ukrainians managed to advance in the northeast. Again, from that area, they have managed to advance in this direction. While they gained some, they also lost some in this area, but overall, continuously, they managed to expand their foothold bit by bit, even though there are some setbacks in between. But we do see that they gained some ground overall. There's also fighting here at Poima, Pishanivka, and Pidstepne. I cannot confirm any fresh advances here. We now have the Ukrainians claim that they gained 3 to 8 kilometers. They got away from the coast, 3 to 8 kilometers. Nothing here is 8 kilometers away. So where those 8 kilometers are supposed to be, I have no idea. Whatever we have here, if we take this, for instance, to the Dnipro, we are at 4.5, and recently they haven't been spotted here. So from all I see, they barely managed to cross over 3 kilometers. That doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. It just means it's not proven. We do not have a Russian confirmation of the Ukrainians advancing that much. We do not have visual evidence. So until further notice, this is a rumor or a claim that is unsubstantiated. We'll keep an eye on it, obviously, as this is one of the, next to Avdiivka, one of the most important parts of the front line as of now, where the fighting is continuing. And there we have the claim by the Guardian, where they say Western officials have briefed them that 3 brigades are believed to have made it across the Dnipro. This is the Guardian claiming it here, but a brigade is roughly 3,000 men. It can be smaller, whatever, 2,300. It can be bigger, 4.5. There are brigades of different sizes. But if we take 3,000, that would mean that 9,000 men are on the left bank of the Dnipro. There is no observation whatsoever of this. There's no confirmation, no Russians panicking about a massive landing, no confirmation of massive additional heavy weapons that came over. So unless this is a complete I would guess it's a complete misunderstanding, that the journalist didn't understand what the officials said, and the officials said 3 brigades participate. It's likely that these attacks here are done by a different brigade than those here, and maybe this one here, because you wouldn't spread it out if you have several to spare, so you can rotate and you have local cohesion, and you don't need to then, if at one point you'll run out of men too fast if you just use one brigade. So it seems likely that 3 brigades are actually being used, but they are over the river in a way that we would understand it. Basically, all of their combat forces, at least all of their combat forces, have crossed it. I do not see it whatsoever. I think it's a complete misunderstanding. And according to this, if you take 50 brigades and send 1 man of each brigade over, it would be 50 brigades that have crossed. Obviously, it would still just be 50 men. So I wouldn't call it 50 brigades. I think this is a misunderstanding because I have no idea where those 3 brigades are supposed to be. The other interesting part are the casualties. 300 to 400,000 are meant in the whole war. Russia has claimed, Medvedev, at the beginning of the month, I think it was the 9th of November, that Russia had recruited 410,000 men. So that would be more or less everyone they recruited this year they would have lost. We do know that the Russians are able to get a local superiority in manpower. So they are not massively smaller than the Ukrainians. But then again, of course, they started with 200,000 men more or less, and they did a partial mobilization that netted them something between 350, 360,000 men on top. So while the 400,000 might be true, it seems highly unlikely that it is. I think it's more closer to the 300,000 that would add up, that they managed to recruit 410,000 without gaining a significant superiority, because their losses are fairly high. Overall, though, we, as said, the numbers, as you can see, 300 to 400,000 is a big ballpark. We are nowhere close to an accurate estimation at this point, but I think 300,000 seems somewhat reasonable. The Ukrainians likely have suffered 200,000 at this point, and overall we would expect that in most parts of the war the Russians were suffering heavier than the Ukrainians, even though they can obviously afford it easier. From the Crimean Peninsula, we have reports about a massive Ukrainian attack. The Russians report that 3 Neptune missiles have been fired, also showing that serial production is now seriously underway. 2 were aimed at Sevastopol. Russians claim they shot it down. 1 was aimed at the Cape here, also shot down. They think it was aimed at the air defense. They also say an R-100 drone crashed and exploded. The Russian mill blogger expected it to be electronic warfare that brought it down. They also claiming a Russian MiG-29 of their naval air force spotted 8 USV, so drone boats basically, in the western Black Sea. In attacks, they destroyed 4, the others 4 fled and were later destroyed as well. We have no evidence of this happening, of the size of it, so it might be true, it might not be true. We heard them before that they supposedly sank every boat, and we do in fact know that some of the boats got away. So whatever it was here, it seems that there was a big naval attack as on the way as well, next to the strikes with drones. There's also reports about HIMARS attacks here in the south, and Ukrainian MiG-29 shot decoys over Kherson in the direction of the Crimean Peninsula. We do know that the Ukrainians have received American decoy systems that can simulate the radar signature of basically anything you want them to simulate. This might have been in that connection as well. Overall, the big news is, or the somewhat big news in this regard, is that Ukraine has bridgeheads on the Dnipro. Now, if you follow me for a while, that's nothing new to you, but the difference now is to, let's say, a week ago, is that both sides admit it now. So we have the local commanding general saying, yes, we have a bridgehead. We have the Ukrainian President Zelensky saying we have a bridgehead. And we do have the Russians admitting it as well. For instance, their puppet governor in Kherson, the Russian set-up governor of Kherson, is also saying that the Ukrainians managed to gain a bridgehead. The difference now is that we are no longer talking about raids. As soon as we talk about bridgeheads, we are talking about a serious attempt to gain a foothold and to expand it. So at this point, the Ukrainians basically officially are clear this is there for us to advance further inland. So we should see additional fighting from both sides, especially as both sides acknowledge it as what it is. We would expect the Russians to send more reinforcements as well. We have additional information about the nuclear power plant as well. Ukraine is saying that Russia put the reactor number 5 in a hot shutdown. It was in cold shutdown before, and as Ukraine says the Russians are incompetent, this led to a leak where boric acid entered the cooling circulation of all reactors. That led to further leaks in reactors 4 and 6, in which cooling water has entered the second circulation. Now, this needs to be somewhat explained. Now, obviously, nuclear power plants are not made that they are like only have no failsafe. There are several cooling systems that are interacting with each other, and if one is leaking, it's usually leaking into the next one, which means it's still contained. But that means that one of the failsafes has already failed, which is not a great sign. And but at least it means that no nuclear spillage is supposed to have happened into the environment at this point. The Ukrainians have signed an agreement about the Black Sea with the insurance company Marsh McLennan, according to which it will insure the Ukrainian exports with a volume of $50 million. This will push down insurances for freighters entering Ukraine, as it's obviously an active war zone. The insurance rates are skyrocketing. This was a problem for Ukraine because either it has to sell its grain for a discount or the ships won't come. With this now, until a ship has been hit. This will mean that the grain will be, or every other thing they also export, will be cheap again. They will be able to afford it. And as far as I understand it, the Ukrainian government takes over the responsibility for the insurance in case something happens to the ships, which is probably a smart move to stimulate exports and the economy. We have some news about some sabotage or potential sabotage in Volgograd Oblast. A ammo dump inside of barracks has exploded. It's unclear as of now, at least that's the claim. It's unclear as of now why it blew up. Was it a drone? Was it sabotage? Was it negligence? That's unclear. But the reports are that a ammo storage inside a barracks in Volgograd have blown up, and as we can see, it's still fairly close to Ukraine, so it's possible that it was sabotage, but we do not have any proof of it. When it comes to troop generation, we have some infighting among the Russian mill bloggers again. Dvarma Yours mostly is complaining, and others are picking it up, that the situation is being judged too positively. This leads, others would claim that Ukraine is close to collapse. Obviously, the Russians believe that they will win, but they say Ukraine is nowhere close to collapse. They still get reinforcements from the West. They are still nowhere close to running out of men. And these over-optimistic judgment of the situation would lead to Russians not signing up for military service, as they think the war is basically over and they are no longer needed. This is happening every few months, that the military bloggers have some infighting where they claim the others do everything wrong. Nothing new in this regard, but we do have, again, like the confirmation from the two majors that the Ukraine is far from being beaten as of now. We also have a video here of the Russians having presented new BMP-3s that they freshly built. They say it's additional, they have additional armor that was installed, and the more interesting part, I think here it's shown where it's supposed to be. The more interesting part is that it has received drone jammers to address the problem of FPV drones. The Russians claim it creates a dome of 300 meters in diameter, so basically 150 meters in every direction. This is the claim by the Russians as a maximum extent, so it might in reality be somewhat smaller. We have to see how well it works. And of course, usually that can cause interference with direct line of sight communication. So a unit that is advancing might not be able to communicate with each other. And that is a huge problem, especially in an attack. So it's quite a possibility that they might just turn it off when they are attacking to prevent them from not being able to coordinate their attack, or it might work just fine. We'll simply have to see how well it's going to work. It was not unexpected. Obviously, this is a problem and the Russians are working on it. Nobody should be surprised. Ukraine shouldn't be surprised about it either, and prepare for it. And we don't know yet how many of their IFVs are actually receiving that equipment and how well done it is, whether it's also being handed over to, installed in reactivated IFVs or just in a small number of the newly produced ones. We'll just have to see, but as said, it shouldn't be much of a surprise that the Russians are preparing to react to that. There's also news from the European Union. They want to enter production machinery into the sanctions. Russia is supposedly completely dependent on Western equipment when it comes to its production. Like the machines that produce everything are usually from Japan, Germany, and Italy. And the European Union wants to prevent those reaching Russia. Also, European Union has said that Denmark is now supposed to stop Russian tankers coming from St. Petersburg, from the area here, and crossing, I think that's the Kattegat, through the Danish straits, where Denmark has the right to stop ships, and in regards to its insurance, especially oil tankers. And the whole theme about the the legal high price of $60 that was set up was that otherwise they wouldn't get insurance, the ships. So this might be a way, or at least the European Union hopes that this way they will be able to prevent Russia from shipping oil by sea, at least through the Baltic Sea. Finland has announced a new aid package, the 20th of in this war. Its volume will be 100 million. And from Armenia, we also have some news. The Russians are reporting that Armenia has stopped issuing Russian language school books, which would be a clear sign of Armenia once more, or an additional clear sign of Armenia leaving the Russian sphere of influence. If you decide to teach your children a different language than you usually did, then it clearly shows a shift towards where you want to see, where you see your future where you see your own future as a country. Once again, thanks to the sponsor of today's video, CyberGhost VPN. If you subscribe using the link below, you'll get an 84% discount on the 24 months contract, making it just $2.03 per month. After that, you'll get another 4 months for free, while you'll have a 45-day money-back guarantee at the beginning. And that was it from me for now. Thank you very much for watching at this point. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the comment section what you see, where you think the Bridgehead will develop to. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.